Yeah, we're glad you're here. I'm Savannah Sellers. We begin with the latest on Francine. The system has weakened to a tropical storm, but not before slamming Louisiana as a Category 2 hurricane.
This morning, hundreds of thousands in the Gulf Coast are waking up without power. This storm made landfall around 5 p.m. local time yesterday, bringing 100-mile-an-hour winds, heavy rain, and widespread flooding. Overnight, a Jefferson Parish Council member said the canals and pumps in the region just west of New Orleans were overwhelmed, with some spots seeing 8 inches of rain. And take a look at this. A driver in New Orleans had to be rescued by a Good Samaritan after he drove his truck into floodwaters. You can see him pull the man out of his truck and then over to nearby police and firefighters. That's Good Samaritan told our affiliate that his background as an ER nurse helped him stay calm. We have full team coverage of the storm, from the latest track to the biggest problems facing first responders. But let's begin with NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch, who is in New Orleans. Jesse, how are things looking right now? What are you seeing this morning?
Yeah, so Joe, right behind us is a section of roadway here that is at least partially flooded. We've seen cars driving through it, so it doesn't appear to be that deep, but I can tell you that we saw the water and immediately pumped the brakes and pulled over to the side and came around the other way to meet our team, because general rule of thumb, you do not want to be going through floodwaters. And as you just talked about right there, there are times that water can be a lot deeper than you might think when you're driving into it. So that's the scene over here in this part of the city. I can tell you that largely New Orleans seems to be doing okay. There are tens of thousands of power outages reported at last check in this area, in this parish in Louisiana. There are other areas that are much harder hit in terms of the power outages. And I can tell you, in this area, I can see lights on someone's porch. The street lights are on over here. So this area where we're in right now seems to have power. Hundreds of thousands of people, though, across the state are without power. I can tell you it's relatively cool out right now. You know, it can get kind of humid. I shouldn't say kind of. It can get pretty humid in this part of the country. And even yesterday during the day, you could just feel this swampiness, this humidity. We're not feeling that right now. There's a light breeze going through here. And I say that because for people who do not have power, right, if you're trying to get some relief from that early fall, late summer, right, conditions here, those people hopefully will be doing okay relative to what it could be if it was a lot hotter right now. But of course, once it clears up, you get the sun out, that could change. So we'll be keeping an eye out for that as well. But I can just tell you, here in the city of New Orleans again as well, we got cars still moving through here. So all these people going through those floodwaters. So it doesn't seem to be too deep over here right now. And as we continue to see what impacts this storm has had, I can tell you we were getting alerts from our phone at one point. Some cell phone carriers, their customers appear to be having issues connecting with 911 in New Orleans. I was getting an alert about that. We got an alert about some issue with sewerage system pumping, asking people to conserve water or conserve the use of water until they were able to sort that out. So again, that's just locally in the city of New Orleans. We're still getting the full picture, as we often are with a storm like this, especially when it goes on in the evening hours. As daylight comes up, I think we'll get a better sense of the true extent of damage.
Jesse, what is the latest that we're hearing from city officials about getting the power back on for those hundreds of thousands that are without it?
So again, the hundreds of thousands, Savannah, is across the state. It's not localized to just one community. So, you know, we're still gathering details on the broader picture here. But I can tell you, in the city of New Orleans, based on the last report I saw, it's in the tens of thousands in this area, in this community, this parish, which is effectively like what you would think of as a county in other states. So, you know, it's not localized to just one community, one city. It seems, but I can tell you from where we are right now, it does not appear that this is one of those areas that doesn't have power, Savannah.
All right, Jesse Kirsch, we know you can't stay dry, but we hope you and your team continue to stay safe. Thank you so much.
Well, for more on the impact that Francine is having on the ground there, we're joined now by Justin Hill. He's the Public Information Officer with the Baton Rouge Fire Department. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on a busy morning, I'm sure. Just tell us, from what you've seen so far, what are the biggest impacts of this storm on the city?
So right now, the biggest impact we've had is the power outages that they were speaking about earlier. Throughout the state, they got over, close to 300,000 people without power. And I know the winds have passed and the rains are subsiding, but now we have with all these people without power, and we worry about people using generators improperly, so we lose more people in the state of Louisiana to, CO poisoning, carbon monoxide poisoning than we actually do to storms, for the most part. So just we're being mindful of that.
In addition to the power outages and the fallen power lines, I know you have downed trees, you have road closures all around the area. Now that the storm is starting to pull away, what are your biggest challenges?
So the biggest challenges is going to be, being able to navigate through the city. We have our Department of Public Works out removing debris and trees from the roadways. We just want to urge all the citizens to stay home, and allow the responders to get out in the community and take care of the things that they need to take care of. Last night, we responded to about 30 weather-related calls, from our department, and most of those calls were in reference to down power lines or down, investigations.
Those down power lines can be a hazard, of course, also as power comes back on. We understand in your area you've dealt with house fires in the past. Once that power comes back on, then as it gets hot, that's another concern, of course, if people don't have air conditioning. But what do you want people who live in your area to know in order to stay safe, even once, the rain, the wind goes away? How can they stay safe in the next few days with these other dangers?
So just make sure that if we're using those generators, we're using them properly. Keep them at least 20 feet from any opening in the homes. That includes windows, soffit vents, things like that. Use the proper extension cords when they're using those generators. Make sure they cool them down before they refuel them. And when it comes to being without power and power kicks back on, people will have electric ovens or electric stoves, and they'll leave stuff sitting on top of them during, the power outage. And when the power kicks back on, there's something on top of the stove, and that burner may have been left on. So just be mindful of things like that. Look out for their neighbors and, help each other out in these times.
We're just past the peak of hurricane season, but there are still a couple months left until it ends. Louisiana, no stranger to hurricanes, big and smaller. Do you feel, as far as Francine is concerned so far, that you might have dodged a bullet? And just how worried are you about the rest of this hurricane season?
Well, we're always worried through hurricane season. That's our biggest challenges throughout the year, for the most part. So, yeah, I do believe we dodged a bullet with this one. We're thankful for that, but we always just stay vigilant and just be prepared for the next one when it does come.
Justin Hill, thank you very much. We appreciate your time while you're dealing with this. Stay safe.
Thank you.
This morning, dangerous weather conditions are also impacting tens of thousands of people out west because of raging wildfires. These are some of those terrifying scenes as more than 65 large fires were burning across the U.S. on Wednesday, most of them in California, Oregon, and Nevada. Across California, more than 34,000 people were under evacuation orders on Wednesday following a triple-digit heat wave over the weekend. Dozens of homes have already been burned by the state's largest active fire in the mountains above Los Angeles, that one called the Bridge Fire. More than 2,000 structures are also at risk in that area as the fire continues to grow. 10 western states were under red flag warnings and fire watches. No state is battling more large fires than Oregon, where 24 fires are now burning. So far this year, wildfires have torched nearly 7 million acres of land across the country. That's an area a bit bigger than the size of Vermont. Let's get to your morning news now. Weather as we continue to track Francine in the south, plus those wildfire warnings in the west.
Yeah, Angie Lessman's in studio with us with it all. Angie, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Busy on the weather front. We've got lots to talk about. Let's, of course, start with Tropical Storm Francine. It is hanging on to the tropical storm characteristics right now. We'll likely see this weakening here as the next day or so goes on. But either way, there's a whole lot of moisture associated with it. We've got a tornado watch in effect for folks across the panhandle of Florida and stretching into Alabama. We'll touch on that here in a moment. But notice winds down to 45 miles per hour. It is 60 miles to the north of New Orleans as far as the center of that storm. And it's going to continue to work to the northeast here over the next day or so before it kind of stalls out. One thing we're really concerned about, no surprise, we've been talking about this for days, the heavy rain associated with this. Those low-lying areas have seen impressive flooding. We've seen the visuals coming out of specifically Louisiana across that region this morning. But we've got plenty of flood alerts in effect, 12 million people in total. But notice where the flash flood warnings are, centered around Jackson, centered across portions of the panhandle of Florida. The good news is those have since expired for New Orleans. So some minor improvement there, but we will take it, of course. More rain on the way, but a little farther to the north. So we're going to start to see the rain wrap up for folks across across Louisiana, at least the southern portions and southern Alabama. But notice places like Memphis, we could see upwards of 3 inches of rain and the possibility for some isolated spots to receive upwards of 5, even 6 inches. So the flooding will be considerable. We'll still be dealing with this here as we get into tomorrow. Notice the system does weaken, but really it doesn't change those impacts. We're still going to look at the heavy rainfall with some really impressive rainfall rates over the next day or so. I mentioned those tornadoes. They'll be possible here through the afternoon hours, specifically from the Florida Panhandle into Alabama. That's where we're going to see kind of those bands still spinning on in. It's not hard for us to see some spin ups with some of those outer bands. So that's something you'll have to watch for, again, not just this morning, but even as the system center moves to the north, it'll be across that region. Now, winds are going to start to be less of an issue, but they're not nothing. I mean, we've got 40, 50 mile per hour winds. 50 mile per hour winds are kind of where we look to see if we'll see power outages, additional power outages, I should say, or down trees. So we could see some of those. Notice Meridian is looking at a peak wind gust around 50 miles per hour. I think the strongest of them closer to 60 miles per hour, but even still 30, 40 mile per hour winds, not great across this region, and something we'll deal with through the day today. And once we're done with Francine in the next couple of days, we've got plenty of other things to watch. Now, there's 2 areas that we're watching of disturbed weather, 94L and 92L. You can see those just to the east of the Leeward and Windward Islands. Not too worried about those right now, only a 10% chance of developing. We already have Tropical Depression 7. That'll likely develop into, or strengthen, I should say, here over the coming days. So we'll watch that. It's still well out into the Atlantic. So to be determined exactly what that is. And then off the coast of the southeast, we have an area that we'll be keeping a close eye on, guys, over the next few days, potentially a tropical depression. Right now, 30% chance of development. So long way to go.
Busy out there.
Hurricanes, the whole country, too. So much going on.
Indeed.
Thank you, Angie. Well, now let's get to the race for the White House as the candidates return to the campaign trail today for the first time since this week's presidential debate.
Vice President Harris is heading to North Carolina. She's going to hold events later today in Charlotte and Greensboro. North Carolina is a battleground state that Harris is looking to turn blue in November. Former President Trump won the state back in 2020 and in 2016. As for Mr. Trump, he's set to hold a campaign event today in Tucson, Arizona. Both VP Harris and Mr. Trump met briefly again yesterday, shaking hands at the 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony here in New York, just hours after their debate in Philadelphia.
More than 67 million people tuned in Tuesday night, according to Nielsen estimates. That's more than the 51 million viewers who watched former President Trump take on President Biden back in June. We've got NBC News senior national politics reporter Jonathan Allen joining us with the latest. John, good morning. So let's talk about the potential for a debate rematch. So former president, he's been non-committal, gone kind of back and forth about whether he would take part in a second debate. We have heard Vice President Harris call for one. Where do we think things stand right now with less than 8 weeks until the election?
There's nothing like a debate about debates, guys. Look, I think there's a pretty good likelihood that there will be at least one more debate between these two. Certainly the Harris team felt like she did very well. Trump says that he did very well. His behavior suggests that he may understand that he didn't have the best night of his general election debate history, which ranges back, I think, 7 debates now. But I think the Harris folks still have some sale to make, meaning, she's still got a bunch of voters who aren't completely sold on the idea that she should be president of the United States, that she may be able to convince. So I think there's incentive on both sides to have at least one more debate.
As we mentioned, John, Vice President Harris is campaigning today in North Carolina. That's a state she hopes to flip in this election. Only twice in the last half century has the state gone to a Democrat, but we should note they do have a Democratic governor right now. So could Harris expand the map here? What's it going to take?
Yeah, I mean, if you were to talk about it in terms of color coding of red and blue, you would say that North Carolina is light pink. It is definitely a Republican-leaning state, but typically one that the Republican presidential candidate wins by a very narrow margin. And there are, huge population shifts. What we saw between the last election and this election is the census adding one electoral vote to North Carolina, which is reflective of new people coming into the state. Many of those new people coming into North Carolina are Democrats or Democratic leaning. So we're looking at a state that's going to be very tightly contested. Democrats, often put a big amount of energy and money and time into North Carolina and lose, and every once in a while they win. So continue to see Harris there for the rest of the year.
John, before we let you go, let's talk about yesterday. There was the 9/11 remembrance in Lower Manhattan. We saw President Biden, Vice President Harris, former President Trump, Senator J.D. Vance, but also in attendance with former President Trump was a far-right activist who's previously pushed a false narrative about the attacks. We have some reporting on NBCnews.com about this. What should we know?
Yeah, Laura Loomer is somebody who is, a conspiracy theorist and a huge Trump supporter who has increasingly been spending time with him and been in his ear. We saw, obviously, she was at this 9/11 remembrance. She is somebody who has questioned whether 9/11 was, quote unquote, an inside job. Somebody who believes or thinks it's possible the United States government was involved in this. That is obviously unfounded, baseless, dangerous. Use the adjective you want. And I'm certain there are many people who lost loved ones at on September 11th who are disgusted by her presence there.
All right, John, thank you so much for your reporting here.
One of the major headlines from Tuesday's debate, that bizarre claim about Haitian immigrants in Ohio, a claim that's been amplified by former President Trump and Senator J.D. Vance. The running mates are accusing immigrants of eating animals in Springfield, but the city manager says that is not true. NBC News Washington correspondent Michelle Sindor has the details.
Let's have a good debate.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Growing fallout over one of the most talked about moments of the debate.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats.
Former President Trump spreading unfounded claims that members of the growing Haitian population in Springfield, Ohio, are abusing pets. City officials say there's no evidence of that. Mr. Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, first spread the baseless accusations on social media earlier this week. When I questioned him about it in the debate spin room, he doubled down.
Vance, what do you say to Haitian Americans and Haitian immigrants who say spreading false claims about them put their lives at risk?
Well, I don't think that no one has spread false claims. What they've said is that a small migrant community has caused a lot of problems.
Springfield city manager said there's no evidence that immigrants are eating animals.
That just means the city manager, I think, isn't fully in touch with what's going on the ground there.
City officials say the rumors may have begun with an unrelated case in another part of Ohio, where a U.S. citizen was arrested for a gruesome incident involving a cat.
Do you understand?
On the ground in Springfield, we found deep tensions.
It's just to me discrimination and xenophobia and bigotry and racism.
Viles Dorseville runs a community center for Haitians.
They just believe that their words have no impact, and it's not true. So immigrants in Springfield, especially Haitians, they are so concerned for their lives and the lives of their kids.
In the last few years, officials say as many as 15,000 Haitians legally in the U.S. have moved to the city, which had about 60,000 residents before. City leaders had advertised newly created manufacturing jobs and Springfield's affordability. But some, like Bill Monaghan, say Springfield suffered from the change.
Oh, it's been disastrous.
What's your response to Haitian immigrants who say they're coming here to revitalize Springfield?
That's not what's happening for Springfield. I mean, it might happen for them. It might happen for the landlords that are enriching themselves, the city manager who's trying to pad his budget.
In a city meeting, the parents of 11-year-old Aiden Clark spoke. Aiden was killed in a school bus crash last year. After a jury found a Haitian immigrant guilty of vehicular homicide, tensions escalated.
I said to Aiden that I would try to make a difference in his honor. This is it.
They're urging politicians and others to stop using their son's death to spread hate.
Do you know that one of the worst feelings in the world is to not be able to protect your child? Even worse, we can't even protect his memory when he's gone. Please stop the hate.
Michelle Sindor, NBC News, Springfield, Ohio.
Well, celebrities are just like us, sort of, right? One thing we all have in common is our civic duty to vote in presidential elections. But if you have, say, 283 million followers on Instagram, that might just have some influence on who your fans vote for, or at the very least, get people more politically involved.
Breaking news.
She endorsed Kamala tonight.
Just moments after the debate, it was the Instagram post that ricocheted across the internet and social media.
Taylor Swift endorsed Madam VP Kamala Harris.
Pop megastar Taylor Swift telling her 283 million followers that after seeing artificial intelligence of her falsely endorsing Donald Trump, she felt the need to be transparent.
I'm sad that I didn't 2 years ago, but I can't change that.
Swift, who in this Netflix documentary agonized over not engaging in the 2016 election, now declares, "I'm voting for Kamala Harris because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them," and pushing her fans to a voter registration site.
Let Trumpomania make America great again.
Trump enjoys celebrity endorsements as well. Hulk Hogan and Kid Rock showing their support at the RNC. A recent Harvard study says when it comes to celebrities, evidence indicates that these voices are incredibly powerful, if not for candidate support, for boosting political engagement. An open question with young voters who may be encouraged by Swift.
I'm just following my own truth, and that truth has led me to Barack Obama.
Celebrities can also create momentum, like Oprah's endorsement of Barack Obama over Hillary Clinton, and George Clooney's op-ed encouraging President Biden to leave the race. Taylor Swift, now potentially the most influential childless cat lady of 2024.
Well, there's at least some measurable impact from Swift's post so far. That voter registration site that she pushed to, it received more than 330,000 visitors from that specific link that she created in just over 12 hours.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.